loud. So Trevor, basically, I'm going to do a little intro. This is going to be to, you're a pharmacist and that's your specialty. This is going to be for podiatrists, but really all of us are entrepreneurs. And, I like to kind of think of, well, if you could go back and when you first started, what you wish you could have told yourself, what are kind of some tips that would have helped you in terms of having a balanced life? It could be involved with Strategic Coach. It could be involved with other books you've read, things like that. So that's what we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking that as I was kind of the last 15 minutes here, kind of getting my mind prepped to the same thing, like we're health professionals. So there's a commonality there. And then of course the entrepreneur side of it. So
yeah. So we'll see where we go. So
yeah.
I'll do a little intro here. Hello and welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery. My name is Don Pelto and I have Trevor Bills here, and we're going to be chatting a little about being an entrepreneur and in the healthcare business. Thank you, Trevor.
Good to be here, Don. Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you again. So Trevor, we're talking, let's talk a little bit about your kind of your passion and what excites you about business. How did you get to be an entrepreneur? What kind of gives you the interest and spark in your life with business?
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is part of my blood, I think. I grew up on a farm, and so Dad was always doing something different or something new on the farm, and that entrepreneurial spirit. And so I knew going through my schooling that, one day I would have my own business. And, I was very fortunate to have an opportunity presented to me shortly after I finished my university education as a pharmacist. And, I took that chance and said yes. And, 10 years later, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of my first store. And, that's, over the years, it's, grown. The business has grown and I've grown. And so, you figure out what your passions are. And for me, on a practice level, of course, it's helping that individual patient and seeing them come back with great results. And then on a business level now, it's more, I get such joy when I see my team doing something just amazing for one of our shared patients, or I see them interacting with another healthcare professional, and that's what really drives my passion now, is just seeing that best experience for the patient and best experience for my staff. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And Trevor, what are some of the best, we're going to talk about the best things. We can talk about the bad things and how you've transformed them, but what are some of the best decisions that you've made in your business?
Well, the first one was when I got a phone call, like I say, 10 or 11 years ago, from a mentor of mine saying, hey, thinking we should open a pharmacy. What do you think? And it didn't take me that long, but I said yes. So that was the first best decision, was taking the chance, betting on myself and saying, yeah, you know what, I can do this. Other than that, as things have grown, I had partners to start with, and then my wife and I, we slowly bought them out. And then it hit a point where it was like, okay, I can either work my tail off, 6-7 days a week and live that way, or can make the choice to find somebody, find a pharmacist to come in and work and give me that quality of life. And I would say that, as I look back now over the last 5-6 years, that's been the best decision, because it's not just fulfilled me and my family life and my personal life, but also it's given me a much broader picture of the business. And since then, purchased another pharmacy and geared for growth. Whereas if I had been head down working as much as I did for a little while, I probably wouldn't be thinking that way.
Yeah. I know, I think it's interesting. And what you're talking a little bit here are the almost like the delineation, your boundaries that you've developed now. I think before, when we're always just working, we don't have any boundaries on our time, and you do everything, right? But now, being an entrepreneur, do you even have any clinic hours still, or are you just kind of doing the management?
No, I mean, I am in the clinic, in the pharmacy, a few days a week, I'll pop in and pop out. Some days I'm there for a morning or an afternoon. So I do still try and keep in the practice that way, which has been good for me. And then also, when you have things happen, I had one of my staff pharmacists actually left here in the last month. And so, yeah, I've had to step in a little bit more, but because I've created that margin within the business, it's not a big deal. I can do that for a while here until I find that next best fit team member, and then we'll carry on. I'm okay to do that at this stage.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. That was one of the recommendations that you had. How do you structure it so you have margins? Is that profit? Is that the same as profits?
Well, it's always easier to create margin. And when I say margin, I mean margin in my time and
Okay.
margin in my life. But it's definitely a lot easier to create margin in your life when you have margin in your business. So that they do go hand in hand that way. But yeah, creating margin for me is about, setting my days. My free days are important. So, I need to make sure I have a free day every week, if not 2 a week. If not 3 some weeks.
Yeah.
And those will come and go. And some seasons are better than others to have more of them. But really, I've found, it to be so true that I'm much more productive after a free day. If I take 3 free days in a row, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, let's say, by Monday morning, like I'm jumping out of bed because I got so much
So
to
many
do.
ideas. So ready to go back.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a big step? Because, I want to kind of explain the situation a lot of us live.
Mm.
I think, and what I've heard from a lot of people is really competent and very good medical healthcare professionals have a really hard time switching into the ownership management role because they're so darn good and patients kind of want them.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts to that? I don't know if that's the same in your profession or is that just mine?
No, it's very similar, very similar. And I experienced that, where, I so I told you one of the best decisions was bringing in somebody new. And, I waited a long time to find that right person. And when I did bring them in, yeah, there was definitely some growing pains, patients that would walk into the pharmacy and look and see that, I'm told they would come in and see that I wasn't there, and they wouldn't ask the same questions, or they might not ask a question at all. And that was hard to hear because I still care for those patients. I want them to, get the care that they need. And the big thing is that I knew my team member was probably better than me at a lot of things. And I know now that they definitely are better than me at a lot of things. Just yesterday, I had an example where, we're in a medical clinic. So had a physician come in and they were asking me a question about kind of a drug change to make. And I knew that my partner that was there with me that day, my other pharmacist, was better suited for that question. And so I deferred it to them. And like I say, that brings me joy because
Yeah.
I know that they're so much better at that. And I think the first part of your question was, that transition from practitioner to owner, entrepreneur sort of thing. And I've seen that, I've seen examples of that where it hasn't gone well. I'm sure we all have, for a practitioner to move into that ownership role. So, for me, what I discovered was that my uniqueness, part of my unique ability was actually is maybe not actually being a pharmacist in the store. And initially
That's
that's
humbling,
hard.
isn't it?
It is very humbling because we identify ourselves as that. You've put in the time, you've put in the schooling, you've built up your reputation and patient base and all of these things. And then to realize that, what, I'm really good at that. It's not that we're not excellent at it, but it's maybe not what we should be doing all of the time. Maybe it's not our unique ability. And so, that was a big realization for me a couple of years ago, to say, I've identified that now I need to live into that. And so it doesn't mean I'm not going to be practicing, but it just means that what I want to build towards, my primary role, is not that I'm in behind the counter, that I'm actually supporting my team now. Because for some of them, and many of them, they've identified to me, don't ask me to be a manager. I don't want to. I want to do this job. I want to be a pharmacist. And I say, thanks for letting me know that, because now we're all on the same page. Great. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that's, a challenge when, we move into that role of ownership, and maybe that isn't our unique ability. We do it because it's easy or it's an opportunity, so we decide we'll say yes, or we do it because we're motivated by the financial side of things. Who knows? But yeah.
So talk a little bit more to that, Trevor. Switching from sitting behind your counter doing pharmacy work every day,
Mm.
and then now you're sitting in, I don't know, an office or in your
Yeah.
house or wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Is that like doing the management work? Is that your unique ability, or is it marketing, or is it opening up other ones, or do you find yourself like just plain bored? I know you're a few steps ahead of me, and I'm like days off. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. Because like you said, your identity is so tied into that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. You sound like some of my staff asking me what I do all day when I'm not in the store.
I get
So
bored, but I
yeah,
shouldn't. I do these things like these podcast things.
yeah. Well, exactly. And I mean, this is the reality, is doing exactly what we're doing right now wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the people in place to be working in the stores. That's just so yeah. I mean, what do I do? Well, yeah, part of it is, the day-to-day operations, and I keep trying to who out and get as many other delegation and get people to do some of the things, because there's things that I do on a day-to-day basis that I probably shouldn't be doing, little paperwork things, or that sort of idea. And that's a work in progress. It always is. But no, I mean, it's a little bit of all of what you said. So it's a little bit of, the day-to-day management, or it's like, hey, my team says, we need another resource on this topic. Can you look into getting that for us? Or I'm looking at ways to grow the business. So, a recent one would be, okay, are we going to offer rapid antigen testing for COVID in our pharmacy? What would that look like? All of that. So kind of working on that expansion side of things.
You're supporting and serving them, basically.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, a little bit of what I term prospecting of, okay, is there another opportunity out there for another store that might fit what my, what I want to do within a pharmacy. So it's all of those things. And then, enjoying the margins, enjoying the freedom to, the freedom of time, them, Don, the four freedoms: time, money, purpose, and now I can't remember the fourth one. And relationship. Absolutely. So, you get one looked after, and then you move on to the next one, and you just kind of build on all of those. And so just taking a chance to say, look, I am going to enjoy some of this. I'm going to enjoy some of my time off.
The four freedoms kind of remind me of what you just said. The guy that invented the light bulb, Edison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how he had his little journal, and every month he was working on a different attribute of how he could improve it in his life. Do you have a certain process of trying to improve the freedoms, freedom of time, money, relationship, and purpose? Or do you do it like me? Every time I go to a strategic coach, they'll point out one and I'll fix that one, or I'll work on it, do an experience transformer on that one. I'm not very strategic about it, but I like that idea.
On the four freedoms specifically, no, I'm not as strategic as I should be. That's a good thought. It makes me think about, okay, how can I be a little bit more strategic? Can I build that into my weekly planner thing to say, okay, this week, how am I going to build on this,
or improve it or transform it? Or
yeah. I mean, on the relationship side, I think that's the thing where, for me, having a planner that I do weekly, and then usually on that planner, I've jotted down 2 or 3 names of people that I want to connect with. And sometimes those are personal connections, friends, or that I haven't seen in a while, or something like that. And it's like, hey, I just want to shoot that person a text, or call them, or have coffee. And then oftentimes those are also, networking sort of work related relationships. And of course, in the last 18 months, it's been difficult to maintain some of that network of other pharmacists and that sort of thing. So it does take intentionality to say, hey, I'm going to call John this week to connect, just because normally I would run into him at every conference that there was. but I haven't been to a conference in 18 months. So let's call them or email them or
Yeah.
whatever.
Being intentional about it. I think that's
Mhm.
great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about going to bed early, getting up early, and any rituals or habits you have, and the kind of the doorpost beginning and end of day that works well
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it started with getting up early, and then naturally that led to I have to go to bed earlier too. And one of the books that I read, was a few years ago now, was High Performance Habits with by Brendan Burchard, and he talks about taking back your morning. And we have young kids, and so they're up. Well, we tell them they can't come out of their bedroom till 7. So, so we have to get in some of, and I would say we, my wife and I, we have to get in our time, before that. And so, yeah, it's getting up, getting maybe, some exercise done, and, whether that's then some journaling or some personal reading, or sometimes it's, sitting and going through my emails or whatever it is that I need to do during that time. I've gone away from it, but now that you bring it up, I probably need to go back to, not doing anything work related before 7 o'clock, making myself, look after my body with, like I say, exercise or yoga or stretching or something. And then, some personal time in the morning. And then, like I say, that naturally led to, well, I need to be in bed at an earlier time because I'm feeling tired. And I think those things have been key kind of cornerstones to the different habits that I've been building over the last number of years.
Yeah, there's another book called Miracle Morning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
I've heard of
talks
that.
very similar about that, just the morning rituals. And the best thing that's happened is they just recommended reading 10 pages in like a Brendan Burchard book or a book on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just transformed my morning, just doing
Mm-hmm.
10 pages. And I just dog ear 10 pages down and I read those, part of my other things I read in the morning. And it doesn't take that long. But it just helps my mindset so much. The more I do this, the more I realize it's a mind game. It's
Oh,
more about mind. Like I have to work harder on myself than anything else.
yeah.
And they don't teach anything about that. Is working
Mm-hmm.
on ourselves.
No, 100%. The mindset is what it is. I think when we go into the day with a mindset, we go into the week with a mindset, we go into a year with a mindset. And it's so protecting that as well, and protecting our confidence around what our mindset is, and so we don't get thrown off. It's really it is the biggest thing that we have and that we can control. I think that's the thing for me, is I know that I can choose every day or every week what my mindset's going to be. I can't control what's going on around me, but I can definitely control what I do and my mindset around it.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
Trevor, if we were meeting here 3 years from now, and
Mm-hmm.
you look back over the last 3 years, what's going to make you happy with your progress over the next 3 years?
I think for me, the number one thing is my freedom of time will have continued to expand, and my freedom of purpose. So those two things. So talking practically, that I'm doing my unique ability. I'm supporting my teams, uh, and that's the only job that I do, that I'm not, doing as many of my administrative things that
Yeah.
I get caught up in. And that, I've got a great team in place that, I don't have to be in the store as much as I can, or I can go in when I feel I need to, or when I feel that, they need my support in a physical way that way. And then the purpose, it's thinking about, bigger ideas that a person has, and being able to find others that have similar goals and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So 3 years from now, that's where I'd like to be, is doing that, in the time thing.
Great. Well, thank you. I think we've covered a lot for our listeners here on this podcast. And if people want to kind of check out do you have a website where they can see your pharmacies and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. The One Pharmacy website, our main store, is
Okay.
www.lifemedrx.ca. and that's kind of our flagship store there. So feel free to check that out. We are in Alberta, Canada, so maybe different than some of your American watchers, but I think there's a lot we can learn from the two systems for sure.
Yeah, well, good. Well, thank you so much for your time and your input. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Don.